Right, welcome. And today I'm going to talk to you about leadership, and we're going to be speaking about how creating better futures starts with brilliant leadership. It's not just all about business. Leadership is about people. And this is why leadership matters, and it's a core skill that we all have and we all need to recognise within ourselves. Okay, so let's just start where the story began. There is no place quite like home. I grew up somewhere that has quite a lot in common actually with this location. I grew up in the northeast of England. We have the other transporter bridge. You may know where I'm talking about. Okay? And the reason why leadership mattered to me, you can see here a picture. This is from our summer when we went back to visit family there. People are living in built environments, places that have been architected by leaders of industry, leaders in politics, who have shaped these places. And we can see that there are people, there is the place, and there is the consequences of those places. So you can see our lovely industrial background, our heritage there. Heritage matters, and when you come from a place like a small town like Teesside, then you find that the place really has suffered from a lack of leadership. I don't know if you feel the same. I think there's many towns across the UK, globally, that are struggling with a lack of leadership and a lack of community. Okay? So how do we begin to address that? We have a number of challenges. We have the challenges ahead of us of equality. Despite the fact that we have so much abundance right now, there are huge inequalities in the way that people live, the experiences that people have, the access to opportunity that they have. Huge challenges with climate, and we are now thankfully starting to see some real leadership in these areas, particularly around areas like renewable energy, but that requires a change from leaders, sometimes leaders at grassroots, sometimes a change from the leaders at the top. We've got challenges around peace and stability. What we're seeing at the moment is shifting borders, shifting priorities between geographic areas, and what people need to find is a way to share resources in a way that will keep us in a world which is more peaceful. The next challenge that we have with the abundance of technology that we have is innovation. The world has never been faster. We have never been more connected. And yet we are seeing things like the Cambridge Analytica scandal, things like this where people are connected, but yet is that connection, is that technology being used in a way which fits with how we want to be governed, how we want to be led? There are 7.7 billion people on this planet, and what we need is leadership to make sure that all of those people have the chance of prosperity and to thrive. Leadership is having the vision to see the potential. Now, I know from speaking with some of you, many are engaged in local community initiatives. Local community is leadership. Schools is leadership. Councils are leadership. Where we are, we have the power and the capacity to change the futures that we see around us, whether that is mentoring children, whether it's helping with a sports team. This is how we are leaders by example. So if we can move. Okay. So we are responsible. Self-leadership means the ability to look around us and say, what is it possible that I can do that can make a change for the people that are around me, the people I care about, the community that I am part of? What can I do to make the place that I live a better place, a more vibrant place, a more peaceful place, a nicer place to be around? We can start very, very small, very, very locally with these types of initiatives. So we need to look towards how we lead in society, how we lead, how we design the future that we want to create. So leadership starts with having a clear vision. How good could things be? So we have a choice point. We are at a pivotal time to choose between, do we use the technology, the abundance, the resources that we have, the intelligence, the knowledge we have access to create a utopia where people can thrive? Or do we see things heading down a wrong path towards a dystopia, where it's about the pursuit of profit over people, where it is about the pursuit of having more and maybe detachment from values? And I think we all can see the effects, particularly with how mobile technology has gone over the last 20 years or so in the rise of social media. Sometimes it has great and positive effects, such as connecting people. Equally, it can have really negative effects, some of which we've heard about today, on things like people's mental health and the ability that they feel to feel worthy in and of themselves. So we need to be very careful, very mindful about how we use the power that we have. So leadership is about the right use of power. Okay, so what makes great leaders? How do we find within ourselves the ability to lead, the ability to have courage and to stand up for what we want to see happen in the world? So, the first thing, and this is a slide from some talks I've given previously, is about the ecosystem. It's about collaboration. Firstly, no great idea or feat was ever executed by one person solely on their own. Even when we look at great sports people, Roger Bannister, as an example, had a phenomenal team behind him, working with him, supporting him when he broke the 4-minute mile. So we need to think about collaboration and lead not from a place of ego, but from a place of service. Good leadership starts with the ability to serve others. So, vision is the ability to look forward. And when we have vision and we can paint the picture, perhaps with our words, perhaps by showing people, teaching people, if we have vision, we are able to put in mind what we want to create. And visionary leaders are those that have the ability to inspire others. Okay? The next thing we have is a direction. So a leader, if we think about anybody who's leading, if we think about an expedition, would have a map. We have a direction. We have to have a point A that we're leading from and a point B that we're leading to. Otherwise, we're not leading anything. We have to be able to set a clear direction. We then have to find our purpose, and this can be the trickiest part for people, to really think about why we are doing what we are doing. What does, if we work in an organisation, a company, what do we exist for? If we're working in civil service in a government organisation, what is our role in serving people? If we're working in the community, why are we attached to a particular passion? So if we can understand why, we are able to then communicate our ideas clearly, we're able to engage others to come with us on that journey back to collaboration. So we have a really simple technique for finding this, which I use in my work with game changers, with leaders. I've worked with over 50 different nationalities now, and we use something that's quite an old model. It's called 7 Whys. And those of you familiar with it will know it comes from Toyota. It's a Japanese model, but by going through this questioning process, this deep dive into our purpose, I have found, without exception, when I do this with a team of leaders, they come back to the same core purpose: peace, prosperity, and happiness. And we apply this to any organisation. Okay. The next is to have honesty in leadership, to lead with integrity. So to be able to be honest, and honesty in leadership is not just honesty with the people around you. We have to have honesty with the people around us, but also that ability to have honesty with ourselves. Where do we need to develop? Where do we need to improve as leaders? And actually, sometimes, when is it the right time to pass the baton and allow somebody else to lead and step into that spotlight? Okay. And then communication. And communication is not just the ability to speak and take people with us through our words, through our ideas, but also our ability to listen, to engage, to empathise, to hear what others are saying, can help us get to solutions, and good solutions, far more quickly. The next thing, and this has come out in every leadership session I've run over the last few years, is humility. Humility is the capacity of the leader to see the greatness in others, to understand that, as we say, they are not leading from ego. It's not for themselves. It's not for reward. It's not from vanity. It is the ability to see what the right thing is to do and to execute that in service of the purpose that we're following. Ethics. So a good moral code and compass. Things like justice, things like fairness, to make sure that we have a good and grounded leadership where these things matter. Leadership is not about being promoted. It is about leading towards the right goals after we've gone through that purpose of questioning that purpose and what our goals would be. It's compassion. And I love the word compassion. It means with passion. And passion, when we look at the etymology and the root of that word from Latin, means to be able to endure hardship or suffering, not what we think it means. Okay? Leadership is not easy. If you choose leadership, you are sometimes going to be choosing to walk alone. And that is why you must have a passion, but also compassion, because it is for a purpose bigger than yourself. Connection. And I love how connection, we were talking about it earlier, weaves us all together. It's weaved everybody into the room for this event. I can see connections with what every speaker and leader has spoken about today. So connection and that ability to empathize, to see into somebody's eyes and be able to connect, not just because you're convincing them with logic and reason, but to connect from the heart. And courage. So we must have courage in leadership. Again, courage is coming from the heart. And when we are coming from the heart, there is not anything that will stop us from achieving the vision that we set out to achieve. And when we have that within a high-performing team, it's the best place you can be. So what I invite you to think about is, how do we each play our part, each play our role? Where do you show leadership? Is it with your family? Is it with your community? Is it in the role that you're doing in your day-to-day work? How do we play our part? If you feel you are not yet playing a part, I invite you to think about what we've discussed, to think about how and where you might use these qualities to bring leadership into your everyday life, even if that is just simply for you. Okay? What is the future we choose? We have choices, and each and every one of us, as we know, as we've heard earlier today, the power of one, we have the ability to choose, to influence by every single action and interaction that we make every day. Leadership starts from within. So be bold, be courageous. As a leader, the future is in our hands. Thank you very much.